All right, we're back to talk about the T-spine and lumbar spine. And quickly, I was just going to tell you guys, I read a study the other day about baseball players. It was actually minor league baseball players. They were doing a study on them pitching 15 to 20 games a year, and they were finding out how that the role of the pitcher in a sore arm is related to tight hip flexors. So that's why this is all about, is you find out somebody that is an overhead athlete, volleyball, tennis, or baseball player, and we can distinguish why they're having pain. It's not just coming from maybe tight internal rotation, it's also coming from a tight hip flexor on the left side or right side. So that's what all these tests are about. It's kind of looking at the big picture, I guess is the best way to say it. So now we're looking at T-spine and lumbar spine. The first thing we're going to do is something very easy. It's called the trunk rotation. So I just have him stick the arm straight out in front of him, and I have him rotate to me as far as he can. One thing I'm looking at is I want to make sure his arms are straight. I want to make sure his belly button stays facing towards the front best as possible. And obviously we're going to look to the other side. You don't see too many thoracic spine injuries in athletes, but it's good to see if they're rotating both sides equally. If not, or if they look a little limited, it's always easy to add that into a workout, especially a stretching program. Trunk extension, if I have him turned to the side so you guys can see this, so you can either have their hands on their hips, and now you're just going to do like a back extension, back as far as you can. The one thing I'm looking for here is I don't want to see his knees bend to try to get more, and he's got pretty good back extension. He probably pretty much does that all the time. And I don't want to see some big slump with their head. So, you know, I have him do 3 or 4 of those, maybe look and see how much range of motion they've got. He's got excessive range of motion. Not really excessive, but he's got a lot of range of motion in his lumbar extension. Next is forward flexion. When they go down, just go have them feet shoulder width apart. A couple things I look for too is you can actually look for, you know, if they have scoliosis, and no one's already caught that yet. But if they go over and they bend over to touching their toes, one, their hamstrings are not tight. They're not bending at the back. They're not bending at the T-spine. We want to see a good, you know, good curve in the low back. And he's pretty flexible, a lot more flexible than I am, and go down and touch the floor. So back up there. So that's a couple things you look at. And this is stuff you guys have seen every day. Most of your kids, your junior high kids and your high school athletes are going to be flexible, as you can tell. You can also check, you know, their hamstrings is another thing. You can lay them down. You guys know how to do that. So I'm not going to go too far into that. The next segment is prone and supine passive internal and external rotation. So you guys know how to do that. I don't really need to go over that. One, you're going to lay them on their back, bring their knees up to 90, and you're internal and external rotate their hip to see if they're limited one way or the other. You can do that in prone, or you can do it in supine. Again, is there pain with one of them? Is there limited motion? And most of the time, they're going to be limited in internal rotation if they're limited at all. A lot of people toe out when they walk. You see them toe out. Therefore, they're going to be tight in certain movements. Internal and external rotation is one of those. One of my favorite all-time movements, and I'll show you guys working with this, is I'm going to have him get in a pigeon position. So what I want you to do is I want you to get like this, so all the way down. So this leg, bring it across. Now sit down, and this leg goes here. So you're like this, okay, like that. So what we're looking at is, bring this leg back a little bit more, all the way back. Good. What we're looking at is, if he can stand up straight, that's phase 1. If he can go down and touch the floor, which he can with no problem at all, we're going to look at external rotation of the left hip if his left hip leg is in front of him. We're looking at internal rotation of the right hip. So now we need to flip those. So this is the old classic yoga pigeon stretch. So we're going to go down as far as you can. 1, again, pain. 2, limited motion. 3, they just can't do it at all. It hurts. So those are one thing you can always do. Two things about it is, one, it's a good way to test mobility in the hip. But 2, it also tests for it also is a good stretch to use as a as a guide. Pigeon Straight's awesome for people with low back pain, sciatic issues, and piriformis issues as well.